couple of photos. The bottom right-hand corner, you should, if you're into paramedic science, recognize where that comes from. 24 Hours in A&E, probably one of the most realistic medical series out there as far as I'm concerned. And we've had a few lecturers on there, much to their horror, because we generally take the mick out of them for being on that show. Because obviously they're here to teach and not become famous on the TV. The degree, it's a level 6 award, but it differs to a lot of other degrees in that it's very, very hands-on. You're not going to be stuck in a lecture theatre for 3 years. A lot of your time, you're going to be down in our simulation centre, learning the skills and learning the equipment that you need to know as a paramedic. Also, 50% of your time will be on placement, which is quite exciting. This is the degree, so level 4, level 5, level 6, or if you prefer, year 1, year 2, year 3. Level 4, year 1 is our basic year, because if you think about it, you're coming to join the course from a whole variety of different backgrounds, and we use our year 1, our level 4 year, as our basic year to get you all up to the same sort of speed. Then perhaps worth mentioning, in level 5, year 2, we have a mental health module. We were the first paramedic course in the country to have such a module. Because these days now, yes, it is the mental health of the patient, but it's also acknowledged that the mental health of the healthcare practitioner is also very, very important. Learning on the degree, we're going to teach you in all the usual ways that you'd expect. So there'll be large lecture theatre lectures, but we can't teach you all at the same time in the skills centre, so we split you down into smaller groups. And you'll stay in that group then for the year, learning your skills and your simulation. We also have access to the anatomy lab and the pathology museum, thanks to being associated with a teaching hospital. The pathology museum is amazing. They have thousands and thousands and thousands of preserved specimens of part of the human body. You get to see how a healthy organ goes along the journey through disease. It is fascinating. Plus, you'll probably see some specimens in that you think, oh my goodness, there's no way that came out of a human body. Some of them are quite interesting. Online learning via our VLE, our virtual learning environment, we use Canvas, and we still see a place for online learning. So some lectures will be delivered online, live, or perhaps pre-recorded. And as I mentioned, placement is a huge part of our degree, approximately 40 weeks for the total degree. But what we do, we split it all up throughout the year. So it's not just one massive placement block. For example, if you'd started in September, this September just gone, as a first year, you're going to be out on placement in the middle of November in a hospital ward. You come back to university, we teach you another bunch of stuff, and then you go out on placement January to March, which is your big placement on the back of an ambulance. And then in your second and third years, you have another placement at the end of the year as well. The takeaway message from this slide is perhaps to note that the majority of our lecturing staff are practicing clinicians. So these are not just lecturers who've been doing it for years and years and years. These are clinicians who are still practicing today. So when they're not teaching you, they're out doing shifts, keeping their skills and their knowledge up to date. Very, very important when you think about it. As and when we can, we will get guest lecturers in. Obviously, I mean, the example I always use is midwives, because we have a really good relationship with the midwives over at Kingston. Why get a paramedic lecturer to teach you about helping people give birth and obstetrics? Well, we can get a midwife in. And basically, what they don't know about that subject is probably not worth knowing. Already mentioned placements. Every year, the big one is at the beginning of the year, Jan to March, on the back of an ambulance. But this gives you a flavour of the other types of clinical opportunities you will get on placement. So by the time you've finished your degree and you've hopefully successfully graduated, you'll have done something like 8 or 9 placements across a whole variety of clinical opportunities, which gives you a really good insight as to perhaps where your paramedic career could go in the future. When our degree was revalidated a couple of years ago, we were very, very highly commended on the student support that we give our students, because I'll be honest up front, a paramedic degree is very, very hard, both mentally and physically. It is a hard degree, but it might be a hard degree, but the rewards are huge once you start working in the profession. So as I mentioned, highly commended on the student support that we give our students. We have one of our members of staff who is our pastoral lead, and they have a mobile phone that's on daylight hours during the week, and you can give them a ring at any point. If you have any questions or you have any problems, you give them a ring. If they can't answer it, they can probably know the direction to point you in. We also have something called the Blue Light Champions. I think this is unique to us. And this is a voluntary scheme for our third years. And we work with Mind, the mental health charity. And basically they have a little bit of training course, and then they get a lovely blue polo shirt to wear. And they're there then to mentor the first and second years through the course. So if you think about it as a third year, you've been there, seen it, done it. Generally, this happens pre-exams. I'm not quite sure why. We also have a senior lecturer who, one of their primary roles is academic support. And basically, because we know for some people, academia is maybe it's not their strong point. And so we have a senior lecturer who has a whole wealth of experience in supporting people across academia. These are the things that we offer on especially on our course, but alongside that, you have everything that St. George's offers as well. And we always say the hardest thing to do is to put your hand up and say help. Once you do that, we will never leave you alone, I promise that. So we have a simulation centre. We're very, very proud of it. Back in 2015, I think we were the first paramedic course in the country to have such a centre. Unfortunately, now a lot of our competitors are catching up with us, but hey. So what can you expect to find in our simulation centre? Well, we have a skills lab. This is where I say you start your journey off as a paramedic student, because this is where we start to teach you all those bits of kit that you need to know how to use as a paramedic, and when to use it and where to use it. So basically where to stick things in people. Oh, and if you look at that bottom middle picture, we teach you a bit of bondage, fracture management as well. Once you've got the skills on board, we'll take you across to our simulation suite, and it's one massive room. At one end of the room, we have two ambulances, the backs of ambulances, built to the same spec that London ambulances have out on the road today. The beauty of that is you get to do your simulation, your scenarios, your skills inside one of those ambulances. So when you go out on placement or in the future, you'll know where everything is. You've had that practice and it won't phase you out. You know where everything is, where everything is stored, the space you've got to move in, etc., etc. At the other end of the room, we have what we call our flat, our domicile rooms. So if you think about it, the rooms where the most popular rooms in a house where accidents happen. So think about it as in a kitchen, probably a bedroom and a bathroom. Now, depending on the scenario, we can fill the rooms with appropriate props. So here we have two different scenarios, two different modules, but in the same room, the kitchen. So on the left-hand side, we've got an elderly gentleman collapsed short of breath. And I've caught that student brilliantly because he's thinking, oh, have I missed anything? Then on the right, again, same room, but a different scenario. This time, a little child thought it'd be great to cook his parents a meal, and unfortunately, they burned themselves. So we're trying to make the scenarios as realistic as possible, but under safe simulated conditions. Oh, I need to update this now because it's now immersion rooms. We now have two immersion rooms. We have a little one and a large one. And if you're not familiar with immersive technology, basically you walk in and to all effects, it's a white room. But then through the wonders of technology, we can portray anything on the walls. So for example, if you look at the left-hand picture, it's a fire scenario. And we were very, very fortunate in that we were able to capture, we were able to get hold of the footage from the London riots that happened quite a few years ago. So what you have here is you walk into the scenario and your eyes can see the fire going on the walls. Your ears can hear the crackling of the flames. And if we put a little bit of smoke in, it's like, yeah, I can smell it. And then we can control the temperature in the room. So if we boost the temperature up really, really hot, it's like you can actually feel. So basically immersive technology is we're messing with your senses really at the end of the day. But there's a lot of research being done on how the benefits of simulation in terms of education. These pictures you see in front of you, these scenarios, are what we call low fidelity. So that's you and perhaps a crewmate interacting with a mannequin or a dummy in the scenario. We also do high fidelity simulations. So the chap on the left, as you can see, he's an upper arm amputee. We put a false arm on him, and we've had a bit of fun with fake blood. because what we're trying to do is trying to get you used to the scenarios that you might meet and experience out on the road. Pictures on the right are what we call moulage. I get told off because I just call it fancy makeup, but with the bit of fake blood, we can make the most gruesome of injuries amazing. Because if you look at that bottom right-hand picture, you can see bite marks on a hand. And even without you realizing, your eyes are sending that information to your brain. It's like, oh my goodness, I can actually see the bite marks on that hand. We can do that just with a little bit of fake blood. It is amazing. Right, interagency training. As a paramedic, when you're out on the road, you get called to a scene, a scenario, guaranteed you will interact with other members of the emergency services. So when we can arrange these training days, it's you getting familiar with how they work and they're getting familiar on how you work. For example, pictures on the left, obviously this was to do with fire and rescue, but it was all to do with patient extrication out of crashed vehicles. And that car, apparently, I was told, had a roof on it at the beginning of the day. And then the one on the right, as you can see, I don't think that student should be laughing so much as he bashes someone's front door down. But this was a police training day. And if you think about it, if you get called to a building or an environment where that door is locked, how are you going to access it? And so the police were showing our students that day what they do to access locked buildings. In your third year, we put you to the test on what we call our major trauma training day. Basically, we take the whole of the simulation center out into the real world somewhere. For example, I think last year we went to the local army training depot, and we basically took that over for the week. And what you do as a third year student, you put all that knowledge, all that skills that you have into practice on the day. So there'll be a variety of patients, in lots of different conditions, and it's your job then to triage and to treat them. Alongside you, we also have members of the other emergency services, and they treat it as a proper training day for themselves to see how their systems work. It's a fantastic day. And if you look at the second picture from the left, she hasn't really got a metal rod sticking out of her arm. That's the sort of injuries we can create with moulage. It is amazing. And we get the first and second years to help out as patients. And as you can see, our patient on the bottom right is enjoying herself lying down. But it's an amazing week of scenarios. And our third year, the feedback we get from our third year students, is how they enjoy it. And it sort of puts into perspective the 3 years that they've been learning about being a paramedic student. So where do we work? So think about, if you come to St. George's, you're going to be working in London. So think about how amazing that would be to work in London, one of the most cosmopolitan capital cities in the world. Think about the numbers of people who come in London every day, 5 days a week if they're working. You've probably got about 9-10 million people in London during the week. That's a lot of people, a lot of accidents waiting to happen. Think about the languages that are spoken, because guaranteed you will be called to a job where maybe English is not the first language. How are you going to cope with that? Excuse me, Google Translate. Joking, but you can see some of the opportunities, some of the challenges you might have working in London. And no offence to people who might live in the Yorkshire Dales or the Scottish Highlands or the Outer Hebrides, lovely parts of the country, I'm sure. But what you will get to see and experience on one shift in London might take you perhaps weeks to see anywhere else in the country. That's the possibility of working in London. You think of the range of jobs that you might get. First job of the day, you might get called to an unconscious person. Second job of the day, it might be a transport accident somewhere. Third job of the day might be going to see that little old gentleman, that little old lady who hasn't seen anyone for days, just wants a cup of tea and a chat. That is one of the unwritten qualities that paramedic needs, actually. You need to be able to make a good cup of tea or coffee, because we're British, always makes everything good. So graduating, I can almost say employability is almost 100% for our course within 3 to 4 months of graduating. The only reason why I can't say it's 100% is because some students stay in education, some students take a year out. That's the only reason why I can't hand on heart say 100%. So it's an exciting time to want to join the profession. Once you graduate, you are then eligible for registration with Health and Care Professions Council, the HCPC. That's our governing body. and you need to be registered with them to be able to practice as a paramedic. Starting salary, band 5, approximately £25,500. Not a bad starting salary, but on top of that, think about adding overtime, unsocial hours, etc., etc. So you can boost that up to quite a decent salary once you start. And then for some of you, you want to give back to the university and to the course. So as alumni, you come back and you help us out on open days and skills days, etc., etc. Career opportunities. Gone are the days now when you tell someone, oh, I'm going to be a paramedic. And they go, oh, so you're going to drive an ambulance then? Yes, that is a small part of the job, but the career opportunities now for a paramedic graduate are becoming more extensive. There are more and more different opportunities. And these are just some of the pictures highlighting some of the roles that you could perhaps find yourselves in a few years down the line. That big red thing there, London Air Ambulance Service, everyone wants to be on that. Considered the best air ambulance service in the world. And if you get seconded onto that, and it's a very, very rigorous selection process, you are seen as a paramedic at the top of your game. It is very prestigious. And that lovely lady there was one of our students, actually, and she now teaches on our post-reg. We've also got 3 or 4 other members of staff who've done secondment on the London Air Ambulance, on HEMS as well. Going to the left of her, or my left, looking at the screen, the Andy-Pandy suits, I get told off for calling them that, but the hazmat suits. Unfortunately, the last few years, we've seen them a bit more than we should have, so thank you, COVID. Going to the bottom right, 111, being a call handler in 111, the 111 service. Being able to picture what someone's trying to tell you and being able to give them advice over the phone is a very big skill. For some people, it comes naturally. For other people, they couldn't do it. So that's something worth considering. Being able to listen and give advice over the phone, depending on what the situation is very, very valuable. Obviously, ambulances, there will be some ambulance, and then yes, I know. I challenge you to find me a paramedic who, when they're driving on blue lights, doesn't go, ooh. But driving on blue lights is now a small part of the job. So don't think that's what you're going to be doing all the time. Some of the time, maybe. Obviously, think about grades. Well, we want 5 GCSEs at grade 4 or above. Must have English and maths and a science, and then 3 A levels or the equivalent, one of which must be a science. Grades treble B to BCC. I won't go into all the qualification connotations that are available. If you are doing something different, I suggest please go to the website and you look at Paramedic Science, and there's a whole page of all the different qualifications that we take on our course. So once you've decided to apply via UCAS, if you meet or your predicted grades meet our criteria, we'll invite you to an interview. That interview is what we it takes the process of what we call MMIs, so multiple mini interviews. So gone are the day where you would sit in front of a big panel of interviewers, like a rabbit in headlights. Those days are gone. So multiple mini interviews, as the name suggests, they're mini interviews. So you'll have 5 stations, 6 questions. Don't worry, the maths does work. And you have 4 minutes to answer every question in those stations. Each station will ask you a different question. And what we're trying to do is tease out something of your character, of your personality. So by the time you've done those round of questions, we'll have a really good idea whether you're going to make a good paramedic or not. And in terms of bias, in terms of fairness, the interviewers know nothing about you until you sit down in front of them and you say, hello, my name is. That's all they know about you. So in terms of bias and fairness, it is brilliant. If you're successful at interview, we will then offer you a place, subject obviously to qualifications. And then you also will have to do an occupational health clearance and a DBS check. If all those go okay, you are then on the course. If you have any questions or queries going forward, there's some useful emails to take note of. My one's the one in the middle, pjoyce@sgul.ac.uk. If you have any questions about coming on the course going forward, please don't hesitate to email me. I'm more than happy to answer every email I receive, but beware, it does take, we do say 3 working days before, and if we haven't answered in 3 working days, just give us a little prompt. Okay, right, well, that's a very, very quick whirlwind guide to Paramedic Science at St. George's. And that's me now finished. I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and hand over to Katie Pavoni. As I mentioned, she's our course director, and she's going to talk to you about what a paramedic is.
Thank you, Paul. I'm certainly going to try. I think I can see a hand up there, so I don't know whether or not there's a question that you want to put in the Q&A. I think it's from Amy. Just while we're swapping screens, that might be helpful. So go for it, Amy, and I'm going to try and share my screen now. So, Paul, are you able to just tell me whether or not that can be seen?
Yeah, I can see that very clearly.
Lovely. Okay, so it's lovely to see you all. For those of you that joined a little bit afterwards, I just wanted to say I'm the course lead for Paramedic Science. It's lovely to be here with you for this very short sort of taster session where you can ask some questions and hopefully get some more information about our programme. So I'm very proud to say that I was a student at St George's many years ago and then came back to work for St George's in 2015 and then and now in the privileged position of being the course director. So I can very much say that I'm very proud of St George's as an institution and the programme that we offer. I'm a clinical paramedic and I specialise in mental health. So for those of you that saw that mentioned in Paul's presentation, I'm the person who then works in the mental health sector and the welfare lead for the programme, which to me is one of the most important aspects of what I do, trying as a team to look after you throughout your period of study here. So going to just talk to you a little bit about what it means to be a paramedic. So Paul has given us a lovely taster and flavour really of what it's about, but we're going to look at it in a little bit more detail and maybe unpick why you are interested in studying paramedic science here with us. So the role of the paramedic has changed quite significantly over the last 30 to 40 years. And some of you who might be keen watchers of things like ambulance, 24 hours in A&E may be very familiar with it, or maybe you're even working in 111 or within the NHS already. But it would be great if I can open up a question for a question and answer. And maybe Kerry might be able to pop it in for me about why some of you are interested in paramedic science. So why paramedic science? And then we can unpick that further as we go through. So this is the bit of the history of paramedicine. So unlike our medical colleagues, our doctor colleagues, we are a relatively new profession. And actually, we didn't really come into existence or into our own till about 1970, which for many of you probably seems like a really, really long time ago, but it's actually not that long in the context of other medical disciplines or healthcare disciplines. And in about 1985, we started to get more skills and we focused mainly on patient transportation, but we became more embedded within the healthcare service and started to get more things that we could do, more interventions that we could do. Only around about the turn of the year 2000 did we get a PIN number and become a registered profession, which is really, really important for us, but also for patient safety. So we became accountable as paramedics. You're given a unique registration number that you are given when you qualify, and you're regulated, or we're a regulated body, which means that we have external governance to kind of contain what we can do. And then since around about the early 2000s, we started to develop into more specialist practice. So some of our lecturers, as we said, are alumni, are graduates from this programme. Some of them were actually some of the first paramedics to be registered in the UK. So we're very proud of the diversity within our team in terms of clinical practice and how the people have contributed to the profession in different ways. So I was showing this to some of our third years today. This is the journey that we've been on. So this is the equivalent from 1974 of ambulance that you see on BBC now, that's really popular and features lots and lots of our, not just lecturers, but graduates as well. So the original documentary was called The Men in the Ambulance. And as you'll be pleased to know, as I certainly am, lots of things have changed there. And they've let more than just people identifying as men into the ambulance service as well. And we did sadly get rid of the hats and the ties, as you would know, you would be pleased to know probably. So a bit more about what we did in terms of our professional journey or achieved. We have a professional body called the College of Paramedics that many of you will probably have heard of, where you can have a student membership before you become registered. We've had really big regulation in terms of what we teach, and our program is endorsed by the College of Paramedics. So that is a gold seal of approval from our professional body for the program that we do. We've also got these specialist practice roles that we've been speaking about as well, and lots of opportunities after undergraduate study to develop your skills. That can be in prescribing, or it can be in advanced clinical practice as well. So we've achieved a lot in a very, very short period of time. So this is probably what you're more familiar with in terms of representation of ambulance documentaries. And our skills and interventions that we can do have also grown massively. So that is a photo taken of all of the kits, by the way, on the right-hand side there, with 2 paramedics lying on the floor next to everything that's contained within the ambulance service. So we've gone a very long way from the stretchers and hats that you would have seen in that 1974 clip there. Okay, so what's it like being a paramedic? Well, it's very, very, very varied, and it's what I would suggest is predictably unpredictable. So we never know what we're going to walk into, and it can change, as Paul says, quite exponentially between calls. So we go from delivering babies to supporting people in mental health crisis, trauma care, social emergencies, all within one 12-hour shift. So we tend to work across the week, and across the 24-hour clock. So day shifts, late shifts, and night shifts. And generally speaking, as a paramedic, you'll be working in a double crewed ambulance. But for you as a student, you will always be the 3rd person, so what we call supernumerary. So you're not expected to work as a crew yet within that sector. So you will only ever be working alongside a mentor, which I'm pretty sure you'll be pleased to know. So what a paramedic is, because this is something that actually has been up for debate quite a lot. But essentially what we say is we're autonomous, so meaning we can make independent decisions. We have knowledge, skills, and clinical expertise that assess, treat, diagnose, supply, and administer medicines, manage, discharge, and refer patients. Okay, so a lot of things that we do across the interaction in urgent, emergency, critical, and out of hospital settings, which basically means we do everything across the entire patient interaction, which means we require an awful lot of skill in which to do that. So we haven't always been represented fairly, and some of our students today were smiling about that, because actually it's very contentious. We have been called many times, and even very recently by Jeremy Hunt, as ambulance drivers. That's certainly not what we are anymore. Very highly skilled practitioners who work in a variety of very unpredictable environments. So like I said, we gained a PIN number, we gained professional registration. This is really key to what we do here as a paramedic profession. So we have a duty of care that we give to our patients. We have standards of conduct and ethics, and these are in place to protect the public, okay, and our patients. So what we do is regulated, and our actions matter. So it's a lot of responsibility being a paramedic, but it is absolutely the best job in the world. So a couple of points about roles and responsibilities of being a paramedic before I come to you, hopefully some Q&A answers. So what we do is we look at physical health and psychosocial health. Okay, so mental health is just as important as physical health. We're very, very passionate about that here at St George's. So we will look at that in terms of all of these different bullet points that are on the screen, physical health and mental health. So we look at preparation, we look at response, we look at scene assessment, we look at patient assessment, and the recognition of injury and illness across the lifespan. So that's adult, older adult, child, etc., adolescent and newborn. We look at ethical, legal and professional challenges. So how we make decisions, how we make professional decisions, and how we apply those within our practice are very important. So we do have to have a good understanding of things like the Mental Health Act, the Mental Capacity Act, etc., which you will learn in great depth across the degree. We look at how to evaluate evidence and critique it, so use research to influence practice, and also challenge research that we don't think is actually that applicable to our profession. We look at making sure patients get the right care at the right time, clearly there is an element of transfer sometimes, and also making sure that what we do, we're accountable to by keeping good records. So there's a lot to it, okay? An awful lot to it. And I'm sure that is something that you're aware of, or maybe it gave you the flavour for wanting to come and study with us. So what are the main skills that we have? Top of the list always, if you ask any member of this team, will be empathy and compassion. Okay, good paramedics are not known because of their ability to put a needle in somebody's arm, but they're known for being nice people, showing empathy and compassion, sometimes in what is the hardest experience a person will have in their life. We need to be good communicators. We need to be good at making clinical decisions, okay, and making those decisions under pressure, sometimes in the rain, sometimes in loud environments where it's not easy to do. We have critical care skills, so we can read electrocardiograph traces of the heart and interpret them to make a decision of what to do for the patient. We are trained in advanced life support, so resuscitation, cannulation, so that is the putting the needles in people's arms to give medicines, and intraosseous, which is what you see in that bottom right hand corner that looks like a little gun. That is how we drill into the bone to give medicines and fluids, sometimes where we can't get access to the vein. We use immobilization, which is, again, what you might be familiar with if you've seen it before, to stabilize somebody's head and neck if they've been involved in a traumatic incident, trauma care, and bleeding control. And that's before we move on to minor health. So we can manage minor health and minor injuries. I've mentioned mental health, and as we've mentioned it a few times, and so because it is very, very important to us. And as paramedics, we can give over 40 medicines, okay, which is actually pretty significant when you compare us to other professions. We work a lot with other professions, and we need to in a way that is beneficial for the patient. So we are very, very key often between the patient at home and then the care that they receive in follow-up as well. And we do a lot of social and welfare support for people when they're in need. So other skills that we have as paramedics, so we have to be adaptable. We have to adapt to some significant challenges that happen within our communities. So one of the most noticeable being COVID. So us on the front line were the people that when everybody was staying at home and were quite rightly very frightened, our colleagues and our paramedic family, a wider green family, were going into danger, into the face of danger. We're there to promote health, to help people access health and empower them to live well. And we're there to try and expand our knowledge as a profession, okay? But more so than anything else, our skills are about looking after ourselves, because we can't look after anybody else unless we do that, and never ever to stop learning. Okay, so the day a paramedic feels they know everything is the day that there's a worry, to be honest. So there's always an expectation that we keep training, we keep learning, and keep doing the best for the patient. So where are we going next? Well, Paul has mentioned a few already, but you might see paramedics working in A&E. So you might have seen them already in critical care, in GP surgeries, in other settings within the community. We have lots of paramedics working in research to try and enhance our knowledge and understanding in different areas. Lots of us working in education. So like Paul mentioned, lots of our team are education specialists. We have specialist roles such as the air ambulance, working in the NHS 111 and in other kind of specific areas of practice as well. And you will see some staff working in really non-traditional environments like prisons and in remote medicine as well. So we have come a long way, and our journey ahead is really quite exciting, which you're going to be part of. So I think we may have some questions that people want to ask, but I'm going to pause there and just see whether or not there are any in the Q&A. And I can't quite hear you at the moment, Kerry, but that might be me.
Sorry, classic. I posted in the Q&A, but I'm worried that people can't see it. So we have turned the chat on just in case that's easier for people to access. So if you would like to share just a very brief insight into why you're considering becoming a paramedic, that would be so lovely to hear. The other thing as well, if you've got any other questions or just anything that you wanted to kind of ask either our staff or our students, please do post. We will be monitoring both the Q&A and the chat at this point, and just to make sure that we can hear from everyone should they have any questions. I think what we'll do, just because we don't have any at the moment, we'll move on to hearing from our students and learn a bit about their experience, and then hopefully we'll have a few questions when we finish that. So you might, we'll bring our students on the screen in a minute, but we will hear a bit about their experience, and we really encourage you to ask them questions, particularly about how they found the course, because it's probably much better to get real life experience from someone doing it now, and I'm sure our academic colleagues would agree that it's better to ask the students because they're living it. So what I'll do is I will bring Zainab. There we go. Zainab's on the screen, so we'll hear from you first, and then once we've heard from Zainab, then we will hear from Amber, I think, sorry. So excuse me. So Zainab, do you want to just tell us a bit about your experience of studying at St George's, studying as a paramedic, and anything else that you think is important to share with our prospective students?
Hi guys, I'm Zainab, second year student paramedic. So I chose the course because after my A-levels, I think I was quite unsure of what I wanted to do. I was always slightly guided that I knew I wanted to go down kind of like a healthcare realm, if that makes sense. But I started like actively attending webinars and open days. And then what attracted me to St George's was that it was interesting because there was a mix of practical simulations and then a lecture. So using what you learn in lectures and then integrating the skills and scenarios, it's just really like rewarding for me and quite fulfilling to see like the progression you make throughout, and like learning even within the real world application as well. So I think that was really good. I like the skill set that you kind of gain throughout first year, and I'm in second year now. I particularly enjoyed the skill sessions. It's very supportive, very immersive, and it's very confidence building as well, because you start to engage with peers. And for me, I think I was quite shy before, but I've definitely kind of gained that communication skills and that interpersonal skill that you definitely need to become a paramedic. So teamwork with your peers and colleagues to meet like a goal, so fun. And then once you've completed, say, a scenario or a simulation, discussing it with the lecturers, the negatives, and like learning from it. And they have such an amazing skill set as well, super friendly, and they can fill in the gaps that maybe the textbooks won't teach you. And there is an element of commitment required. You do have to have that independence to do pre-reading and like making sure that you're attending lectures, because at the end of the day, this skill set is kind of really needed to ensure you're giving the best help to people. And especially with placement, definitely learned to balance my work relationships and that social life, and commuting into uni also taught me to have a routine. And just generally, like, Tooting is such a multicultural little place. I really enjoy it. Commuting's not too hard as well. The train station's nearby, and the societies available as well. It's really good, especially the sporting societies. It's so good. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Thank you, Zainab. I'm also just going to ask you a question, just because I think it might be helpful for people on the call, and I'll ask Amber in a minute. How did you find, I don't know what you came to this course from, was it a school that you came from into Paramedic Science course? How did you find that transition?
So I did my A-levels. I did psychology, biology, and English literature. And I'd say having that biology aspect was helpful because you do have to know a bit of your pathophysiology and just general bodily structures, I'd say. But just generally, it is a jump, but the support that's available in St George's, I'd say access the support, because you've got the academic support centres, you've got the librarians who are amazing with referencing, and it can be daunting at first, but some people are all in the same boat, so you're not alone. And the support available at St George's is actually insane. Like, it's super helpful, especially the Academic Life Centre, booking sessions in, and also counselling services if it is getting tough. It's always there for you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Zainab, for sharing. I'll invite Amber on. Hi, Amber.
Hello.
Lovely to have you. If it would be great if we could just hear a bit about your experience as well, and anything that you think would be really helpful for our prospective students to know about the course.
So I have written some stuff down. So if I'm like looking at my phone, it's because I'm reading. I feel like there's a lot to say about uni, to be fair. So the reason I chose Paramedic Science was mainly because it's like not your usual 9 to 5 working environment. I like a good fast-paced environment where I can sort of like be out and not be stuck in an office all day. It's not like your boring 9 to 5. It's some crazy 12-hour shifts. But all the mentors, I mean, I work out of Croydon, so all the mentors are pretty good. They're really supportive, and they bring lots of snacks onto shift, which makes it so much better. For me, coming into third year, you know, I've got to start thinking about my career choices and where I want to go. So at the moment, I work as a healthcare assistant in Brixton Prison, which is crazy. It's busy, you get call outs, but the experience I've got from that is mad. Like, I've got so much more knowledge about little things, and when I go out onto the road, I can implement that into my time on the road. Also, you meet a lot of people from a lot of walks of life. There's a lot of people in London and in Croydon, where I am based, and they all have a story, and I just love that. It's just so cool. Social life wise, at the moment, I do not have a social life. I am inundated with exams coming up, my dissertation that I have to write, and I am just staying at home. I'm not really going out. But in first and second year, I was only at uni 3 days a week. So I do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, I use that time to go out, be with my friends, go and see my family back home, and go to work. So I did try, but third year, I'm not trying. I'm not going out. I will stick to revising. So I've not had the conventional uni lifestyle, if that makes sense. So I never went to halls. I went straight to living with my partner, and we still live together. So I've not really had that, you know, uni life. I prefer it like that because I'm what they consider a mature student. So I didn't really want to be living in halls with, you know, younger people. I just sort of wanted to be on my own with my partner, which was quite nice. Yeah, I mean, public transport is phenomenal around here. Like, if you ever need to get to placement, or if you commute to uni, there's buses, there's trams, there's tubes. I would always pick London over anywhere else. Because, as I think Paul Joyce said at the beginning, everywhere else is really boring compared to London. My friends work in CCAM, and they have definitely not had the experience that I've had with some of my jobs on the road. But yeah, that's it really. I think I dipped into other unis where I had interviews, but I did accept St George's, primarily because of 24 hours in A&E. I thought that was a really cool thing to say. I go to the same uni where they film 24 hours in A&E. But yeah, that's it, I think. I don't really think there's anything else.
Great, thank you, Amber. And can I ask, you came in as a mature student, so did you come from, what kind of setting did you come from into this programme?
So I took a gap year that turned into a 5-year gap year. So when I was 17, I went straight into A&E as a healthcare assistant back home in Kent, and I worked there for 4.5 years before I decided that I wanted to come to uni. It was never my choice. I never really wanted to come. Because I hated living away from home. I hated going out. I just didn't like to be very sociable. So I went and had a chat with my local ambulance station, and they said, look, the best way to do it is to get some experience from somewhere, whether that be like call centres or A&E. or wherever if you don't want to go to uni. After 4 years of A&E, one of the nurses said to me, you need to go and do it because your life is not here, your life is in London. And that same night I applied and I got in. So yeah.
Great, thank you for sharing. Fabulous. So if I could just invite Paul and Zainab back, that would be great. We do have a few questions. So we had one question, this is in the Q&A, and then I'll move to the chat because that's where most of the activity is. So I think this is for our students. There's a question from Jess. What part of the course have you found the most challenging so far? I'll ask Zainab first and then Amber.
I think so far for me, the most challenging has to be a mix of essay writing right now, because academic writing is tough, but you do have your support. But also I would say the confidence as well. Gaining that confidence on placement for me was tough. But you're supported by mentors as well. You've got your allocated mentors and you can talk to lecturers at all times. So I would say even if there was a struggle, there's always a way to combat that. So yeah.
Thank you, Zainab.
I think for me it's probably the workload. I'm not a very organised person. I'd say I try to be, but trying and doing is two completely different things. So I think the workload and trying to balance sort of every aspect of uni life, going to see family, having a job and doing uni and placement is quite tough, and it can be challenging at times. I think I've probably cried to Katie about 50 times in the 3 years that I've been at uni. But it does work. If you plan your time, it works really well. So I think that was probably the most challenging thing.
Great, thank you.
Also, it's very interesting because as admissions tutor, I see applicants on open days. I see them when they come for the MMI and they're scared, doing the MMIs. I see them when they start on day one, week one, year one. And I always say, and probably Zainab and will remember this, I always say, so that on day one and week one, year one, remember this day because these 3 years are going to go so quickly. They go by in a flash. And it's also interesting, as Zainab has said, when she started, she wouldn't have said boo to a goose. She was so quiet. And over the 3 years, you see the students gain that confidence to basically talk to anyone, experience anything, do anything, because what we set up in terms of supporting the students throughout the course, as both Amber and Zainab said, you talk to any member of staff about anything, and we're always there. We're always willing to have a chat in the corridor, in the lecture theatre, after lectures, after sim. We're always around, and we're always happy to chat and give you the support that we want. Because at the end of the day, once you join the course, our job is to get you to graduate. That's what we're there for, and hopefully see you as the ambulance goes past. I can say, "Oh, look, there's one of my ex-students." That's what I love to do.
Brilliant, thank you everyone. So just looking at more of the questions. So a question here that says, you said working alongside a mentor. Would that be during the course or after the completion of the course? I suppose Paul or Katie, what is the mentor and what context is that in?
Yep, I don't mind picking that one up. So we call them a mentor or practice educator. So when you're working as a student, you'll always have a practice educator with you. When you qualify, you'll normally there'll be a bit of an induction, but then you'll be out doing it by yourself. So when you're with us, you'll always have a practice educator. You won't be doing it by yourself. But when you qualify, then that's the exciting bit, but also the scary bit. And that's why Amber flinched then, because she's getting nearer doing it by herself, but she's going to be absolutely ready to do it. As are all our third years, get a little bit worried as you approach this time, but we get you ready to absolutely be brilliant at it. Okay, so you have the mentor with us, and then afterwards you fly the nest and you do it by yourself, and you'll be fine.
It's probably worth mentioning as well. The mentor is when you're on placement. When you're at university, for the 3 years, you will have a personal tutor who is there to help you regarding anything while you're on the course.
Great, thank you, Katie and Paul. the next question, I'm just aware of time and I don't want to miss anything. So there was a question, I don't understand this, but I'm hoping one of you will. Do you offer any additional courses alongside the degree, like ACLS? Is that advanced critical life support? Or
we don't, no, you're pretty bang on the advanced life support. Yeah, we don't offer those statutory courses certificated through the program, because the program is intense enough, and I'm sure Zainab and Amber will say that. So there are opportunities to do other things within the university, but for us the program is quite big, quite complex, and those things are taught to the standard of the courses, but you don't have a standalone CPD course within it. It would be too much. I think it would be unkind to put you through additional courses as well. But there are other opportunities within the wider universities, so you can work with, if there's a course being offered by medicine or physio, then they'll often be university wide for students to go to, but no, we don't.
And I suppose as well, those are opportunities that you'll get once you're possibly qualified with your ambulance service as well, as development, right? So probably a nice thing to leave them until you've qualified, if the course is as busy as you're all saying. There's a question here about the difference between like the degree route and the apprenticeship route. It said a mix of practical and lectures. So what would be the difference between applying for like the degree route that we offer versus an apprenticeship route? If you want, there's a bit more to the question, it might be worth having a read. And there's also a question relating to kind of subject specific requirements that might be best to email about, just looking at time.
Yeah, I don't mind picking up the bit about the apprenticeship. So when you apply through an apprenticeship route, you're employed by the ambulance service as an employee, and then you would work without, you'd be working in a 2 rather than a 3. So with us, you are always in a student capacity for those 3 years. You're not a member of the ambulance service until you are employed by them. So you have all the access to the university services that we teach you. We also teach you a national program rather than a trust specific program, so you can work anywhere in the UK after finishing our degree. So although we have a big affiliation with London and the surrounding trusts, you can literally go back to the Outer Hebrides if that's where you've come from. So in terms of the difference, it's about, you are a university student with all the support, personal tutoring, all those elements that you wouldn't get having to work a full-time rota for the ambulance service. So you would be doing your degree study on top of a full-time job. And that's the difference with us. You do your full-time placement built into the program. So apprenticeships are very difficult in a different way. So we're a bit biased because of the program that we offer, but it gives you the space to learn without the pressure of actually being employed at the same time.
Great, thank you, Katie.
Also, sorry, can I caveat this as well?
Go.
So when I'm on station on placement shifts, every single person that does the apprenticeship moans. When they're working, they have to request annual leave to be able to go to uni, do their exams, attend lectures, and they have to request that annual leave. So it's not like they're getting paid for it. And then on top of that, you are doing 12-hour shifts at a time. It's 12 hours and then maybe a uni day, then another 12 hours. Whereas like uni is block, which is nice because then you're not thinking about uni when you're on placement. But whereas when you do the apprenticeship, it's like week in, week out is like shift uni. It's non-stop. I mean, I think the only positive that I've ever heard is that they get paid. That's probably it. But yeah, all I've heard is poor things from the apprenticeship, and it was something that I considered doing, but I'd never say that I'd ever consider it ever again.
I suppose it's something that we would encourage you to research, and
100%.
you as a prospective student, for wanting to go into this profession and knowing that the route to get there is to do a paramedic science degree, the best thing for you to do is kind of do all the research you can, speak to as many people as you can who've kind of encountered both like each setting, and knowing yourself and the kind of environments that you would probably cope well with, making an informed decision about that. Everyone is different, and you know, different routes exist for different reasons. Obviously we think our course is brilliant, but we also know that there are other reasons to pursue an apprenticeship route as well. So we would encourage you, if you're considering an apprenticeship route, to really just take that decision. Just make a very careful decision about it, as we would for anyone pursuing any course at higher education. It's a big decision to make, and the format of the delivery of that qualification is just as important. Great. I'm very aware of the time. There's a couple of questions. We will continue answering the questions beyond 5, but we appreciate that people might need to go at 5. We'll just be here for a few more minutes and that's it. But if you do need to leave, then this session is being recorded and it will be made available online. But just very quickly, there's, I think, just one more question actually. Just a question about course structure. So what's the mixture of lectures, clinical teaching and placement, and how, so the question was about, you know, is year 1 more academic and then just like clinical build and you get more independent as you go? Could you just summarize quickly?
I can do it very quickly. Yes.
Yeah.
each year is a third theory, a third practical sim, and a third of placement. You do placement every year. Every single year you have a mentor, okay, so that doesn't change at any point. What changes is the level of knowledge you have at those different levels. So when you're going into placement in year 3, you will be assessed in practice by a mentor, but at a different level than obviously in year 1. So every year has a third of each: theory, practical, simulation and placement, okay? And you will always be with a mentor for the duration of the whole 3 years you're with us. So hopefully that summarises it enough. But
yeah, I think that's perfectly summarised, Katie. Thank you very much. Well, I think what we'll do, I'm just going to double check if there's anything else. I think that's all the questions. Thank you for sharing. A couple of you asked Katie's question earlier about why do you want to get into paramedic science. Thank you so much for sharing that. Lovely to read. Thank you so much for joining us today for this event. It's been great being able to interact with you and see the kind of questions and concerns that you have. Thank you to all of our presenters, Paul, Katie, Zainab and Amber. If you do have any questions following this event, we do have a contact us page on our website, which has all of the information on who to contact about what. And the other thing that we are running at the moment is campus tours. So if you just go onto our website and search campus tours, if you want to come to site and have a look around, do book onto one of those if you can, because it's really worth seeing our site. It's very different to a normal standard kind of campus-based university, and it's such a brilliant immersive atmosphere. So thank you very much, and we'll wish you all a lovely evening.